Hi, my name's Rusty Goff. I played Little John in the Robots Are Showed in Doctor Who, and you're listening to Mark Who 42.
Welcome to Mark Who 42's Whoniverse. That's right, I said Whoniverse. We're going back to the Whoniverse here on Mark Who 42's universe. This is the 20th anniversary of New Who, of Modern Who, of the RTD era, which continued to Moffat, Chibnall, and then somehow went back to RTD. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten. As I said, we've got some people on today to help celebrate 20 years. First of all, my co-host,
Juan Sanmiguel in Orlando.
Hey Juan, how's it going?
Oh, same old, same old.
I'm wondering, because tomorrow we're recording this early, but this is coming out the day before the anniversary, and I'm going to bring this up when everyone comes up, but I have this thing like, shouldn't there be some kind of special tomorrow? We'll get back to that thought. So thank you, Juan, for coming on, as usual. We also have as special guests today,
Jarrod Cooper here from Orlando. I'm here because I haven't quite chewed through the restraints that Mark's got me here for. So
yeah, that's true. We've pulled him in several times because he's on. I've got a rope and it's easy to pull in.
I don't understand how we are here talking about 20 years of New Who, because I swear that was just a couple years ago.
Me too. It's like I feel like we're getting old because we're at the same point, and people have mentioned this on the net. We're on the same point as people were when we were watching The Five Doctors from Unearthly Child. And now we're sitting here as that far from Rose. It is very, very weird. And yeah, I feel much older.
All I know is I must have a hideous painting up in the attic because
yes, Mr. Gray, you must. Okay, we do have one other person on. Sean, introduce yourself.
Hello. I'm a friend of Jarrod. I'm actually currently calling still from the cruise ship. I hid and they weren't able to get me out, so I'm in the rafters right now.
It's that Miami traffic. It's a miracle you can get on or off that ship.
Oh my God, it's so bad. What is it? 3 hours? It's incredible what the Port of Miami traffic is at the wrong time of day, because you have to go through the city of Miami, and that's hell to begin with. At times.
I actually did the math on it, and the trip from my house in Orlando to our hotel in Miami compared to the trip from the hotel in Miami to the terminal, there was only a 20-minute difference in that drive.
Wow. That's unbelievable. That's unacceptable.
There's a small tangent, and I'll keep it short. Jarrod, you haven't used the Bright line? I used it on my last trip home to visit my family.
See, Juan, the problem is with the trip in Miami, the last mile is the problem. It literally took us over 2 hours to get over
the tunnel. You have to go into the tunnel.
No, the tunnel was out, Mark.
Oh, okay, that's even worse then.
Yeah,
the tunnel makes it a little faster.
The tunnel was out, so it was over 2 hours to get over the bridge and to the terminal.
I'm going to stop right here because people are listening to this show and going, why are they talking about traffic in Miami? And,
somebody has to.
Somebody has to, yes. But anyway, we are going to take a break because I didn't even say what our show today is. Tomorrow being the 20th anniversary of New Who, we are going to give our personal favorite moments from New Who. And we'll be right back here on Mark Who 42's Universe. Or Whoniverse, should I say.
Don't go away. We'll be back with more Mark Who 42 after this.
Toycast is back. We are talking toys once more here on the Geekcast Radio Network's Toy and Action Figure podcast. From breaking into the display case to our toy topic talk and the brand new Origins in Toy collections, where we get guests to tell us their toy story of how they got into toy collecting. Toycast is the only toy podcast you will ever need. Find us on geekcastradio.com and any podcatching client you choose to use. Now go forth, transform and transcend your toy collecting today while listening to Toycast.
Get ready for the ultimate geek experience right here in the Sunshine State. Florida Geek Scene presents a full calendar of events and conventions. From anime to horror, we've got it all. Meet your favorite stars, find rare collectibles, and immerse yourself in your passions. Experience the thrill of cosplay and witness amazing live performances. Stay up to date with the latest news and reviews all across Florida. Florida Geek Scene, where pop culture happens. Visit us online for more. Don't miss out on the fun. Join us at Florida Geek Scene. FloridaGeekScene.com.
You are listening to Mark Who 42's Universe.
Welcome back to more of Mark Who 42's Universe. I'm Mark Baumgarten. With me today is Juan Sanmiguel and our guests, Jarrod Cooper and Sean Rivera. And we're going to be talking about our personal favorite moments from New Who, because tomorrow, the 26th, happens to be the 20th anniversary of New Who. Before we go on, and I wanted to say this at the top of the show, and I didn't, and I apologize. Can we talk? Simon Fisher-Becker passed away on March 9th, and this is the first show we've done to be able to bring that up. I first met Simon when I interviewed him for the show. He was so fun. We had him on a lot. We had him, I think, on 2 or 3 times. And then after that, we had him back every once in a while in a little segment called Simon Says, where he answered a listener's questions. And it was great fun. In 2016, when I was a panelist and interviewer at Geekonomicon for the 20th anniversary of the TV movie. God, another 20th anniversary. I did 20th anniversary of that, and Simon was actually there at the convention. And there was an earthquake, and I'd never been in an earthquake. Simon had never been in an earthquake, and we talked about it. But the funny thing is, he was in the elevator when it happened, and I'm like, oh my God, that would have been so bad. At least I was half asleep in the bedroom when it happened. My thoughts go out to Tony and his husband and the rest of his family. My condolences to everyone.
I can only say I can only base on his performances in A Good Man Goes to War and Wedding of River Song. Yeah. I mean, he was an excellent performer. I was confused. I thought he was someone else, but then I realized, he's Dorian, Dorian. So not much
Dorian
to say.
Moldovar.
Good actor. Sorry, obviously sorry. Sorry for his loss.
Simon was in one of the, however you want to say it, a rare breed, because if you sit here and think about how many guest actors does Doctor Who have, how many supporting actors does the Harry Potter franchise have, Simon was someone who was always willing to hang out with the fans. He went on multiple Doctor Who cruises. He did a signing event for me here in Orlando, and he is loved across the world, so much so that on the day that he passed, he was front page news on CNN.
Yes.
And I was like, there's not many people that can warrant that outpouring of love for someone who's not a regular, but has that personality and is so well loved by fans.
Was Doctor Who the first thing that they brought up in the CNN? Or?
No, Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
All right, fair enough. I even forgot what he did in Harry Potter.
He was the Fat Friar, the Hufflepuff ghost.
Oh! I keep getting the John Cleese ghost mixed up with.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Right. Sorry to interrupt, Jarrod.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, when I think back on him, I will think back on someone who brought so many smiles to so many faces and had that reciprocated.
Definitely. He brought a smile to my face every time we had him on the show. He was an amazing man.
Well, it's going to be hard to follow that up. So I'll keep it short and sweet. It's always very, very impressive to see somebody who occupies roles that are small within the script, but that are immediately recognizable.
Yeah.
So as you said, he always brings a smile to my face, any character that he occupies. And I think that's just a little bit of light in the world that, well, we can be happy that his life happened.
Again, want to give my condolences to his husband, Tony. But you know what? Let's celebrate the life of Simon with something I know he loved, which is New Who. And let's talk about the 20th anniversary of New Who and our personal favorite moments. This was an idea. This show was actually an idea, mostly of Jarrod's. Wasn't that right, Jarrod?
Indeed, it was.
Yeah.
Well,
we talked about it.
Yeah, because I sat here and it was something that actually spread out of YouTube, and I was like, you know what? There's a million best moments.
Yeah.
The BBC themselves now, like every day you were on there, it's like, oh, these are the best moments from 2015. These are the best moments. And I was like, yeah, but what about my favorite moments? Because Jarrod's favorite moments aren't Mark's favorite moments. They're not Juan's favorite moments. They're not Sean's favorite moments. What moments impact you from the last 20 years, and for what reason? Because it could be very different depending on the person.
And we're going to do this in a round fashion. I'm always going to start with our guest, Sean.
Well,
we will then move to our other guest, our regular guest on the rope, Jarrod.
So
we will then move.
Is Sean gonna do all of his in one go?
No, one at a time. I said we're gonna go in a circle.
Okay.
So Sean, Jarrod, then you, Juan, and then I take up the slack at the end. And we're gonna go around and we're gonna get three of each, but we're gonna do one like Jarrod asked. We're gonna do it one at a time. And so now we're gonna start with Sean. Sean, what is your number one personal favorite moment from, it doesn't have to be in order, but your personal favorite moment from New Who, the first one?
Sure. Well, I'm glad the pressure's off. I get first pick. So kind of a recurring theme in ones that I may bring up. It's going to be a hot take for some people, but I adore Love and Monsters.
Thank you. That was the one.
Yep, I adore that episode so much, unironically. And there are so many moments in it that I could choose. I think the most impactful one, or at least one that's kind of a definitive scene, is Jackie's breakdown. I think compared to any other episode, and there will be people who will disagree with me on that, and we'll have counter examples. I genuinely feel like that is one of the few moments where I feel the realness and the rawness of a non title card character.
Yeah.
So like viscerally that, it impacts me to this day. Of course, Jackie, an iconic character, obviously in her own right. And she had her moments, prior to that episode. I think if I had to choose what solidified her as a fully 3, 4, 5, 6-dimensional character, I think that was it. And it ground the entire show to a halt for a moment and let us know that all of these adventures that are happening in the grand scheme, this is, I guess it kind of begs the question, or to ask the question, all of this fun gallivanting around, who is this leaving behind? And
which they did not do in Old Who. They didn't really do this. This is a whole new thing.
Yeah, so it really, really brought kind of a dimension of realism to it.
I agree. I agree 100%. And I'm sitting here, the word that keeps popping up into my head is consequences.
Yeah.
These are some of the consequences of the Doctor's travels and where he goes. And 100% I agree with you that this was a gut punch that the audience needed.
And I mean, very, very first thing that happens is he sweeps her daughter away for what, a year? 12 months? How long was it?
Yeah, a long time.
I mean, very, very first thing that happened right off the bat. So this really kind of circled back to that too, and really, really hammered home, this is not a joke.
I have another reason why, and this is actually in my runners-up, by the way, and this is what I was talking to Jarrod about. I actually agree with that, but I won better than that. The ELO soundtrack. How do you hate anything with an ELO soundtrack? And people are like, oh, this is my least favorite episode, but it's got ELO. You cannot hate this episode. It is great. I mean, okay, Jarrod, what did I mention? I mentioned to you Xanadu. What did you say?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? You were giving the positive output, because I was like, well, maybe except Xanadu. And you were like, no, that was good. And you were right. Xanadu was actually pretty good, if you think about it. Definitely wasn't Grease, which I know this was like Olivia Newton-John's follow-up, but back to Who, the ELO soundtrack, that made the episode for me. And Peter Kay may not be used greatly, but I love Peter Kay. He's a very funny man, and I did like that episode a lot.
And I think a lot of people are using the wrong word when they describe this. They say that this is their least favorite episode.
Yeah.
No, I think this is the episode that contains their least favorite line of dialogue.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Go with it.
What is it?
We even have a kind of love life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think if you lifted that line of dialogue up out of the episode, people would change. But because that line is towards the end of the episodes, that's the impression that they're left with, despite what happened before.
Anything else you want to add, Sean?
You know what? I even have my hot takes on that very scene. I think overall, I have a positive impression of the episode. But yeah, there are lots and lots of moments that hit really hard.
All right.
So there will be more to come if somebody doesn't, fingers crossed, if someone doesn't take the one I have in mind.
No, that was the one that I was going to steal from you, and then Jarrod told me, "No, shut up and don't say it." Jarrod, you're next.
For my first favorite moment is something that's happened. I've grown a new affection for in recent years, although it does go all the way back to season 3, and we're going specifically to Gridlock.
Okay.
That episode. There is a scene where they're all in their cars together on, in the Gridlock, and they all stop and sing "Abide with Me."
Yeah.
And that moment when the episode aired, and for all these years, it's been a great moment. However, when you take a real world look back at it and look at it post-pandemic, it reminds you of all the scenes of people singing together for the NHS and singing together while they're in isolation in their apartments. And it was just such a wonderful echo to that. And I was like, you know what? That's one of the things I love about science fiction. It's one of the things I love about Doctor Who, is it has grown into something more than it was even designed to be at the time.
Wow.
And that's just the biggest example that I could come up with. Now, mind you, Gridlock, I absolutely adore Gridlock. Sure, it has its problems. There's rabid macra in the bottom of the planet. Sure, why not?
Why not? Just throw it in there.
The entire symbolism of it is just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I just, the idea of kidnapping someone off the side of the road so you can use the express lane, just, of course.
That would have worked in Miami, Jarrod. That could have worked in Miami. You could go on the HOV lane, if it's still there. I don't think it's there anymore.
So yeah, just my first favorite moment, it would be that "Abide with Me," simply because of the new feelings it evokes all these years later on rewatches.
Mine is kind of unusual, but actually Jarrod kind of tied into it. And I'm doing mine in chronological order because easiest way to figure out moments. The credits for Rose, because what blew me away. Now, Rose has a lot of things which blow people away, and I don't know if you guys are doing it chronologically, so I'm not going to try to steal anything. But it blew me away that at the end, after the cast credits, it says Nestine's originally created by Robert Holmes, and that just blew me away. I mean, already the Rose shows that it's not completely cutting off ties to the past, and that was a problem I had with a lot of Berman Trek. I mean, because Berman was dealing with Gene's legacy, and also I think Gene's lawyers, of what he could and couldn't say. You sometimes couldn't go back to Trek past, so it was kind of nice that you saw that acknowledgement for Robert Holmes. Now, where it ties into what Jarrod said, back in the days when we had to use, most of us who really wanted to see New Who desperately would use BitTorrents, and to make sure that I got a good copy, I would check to make sure I got the credits. So when I did it for the episode with the Macra, and I said the Macra originally created by Ian Stewart Black, I go, the Macra are in this? That was kind of, because I haven't seen the Macra. I don't think I'd seen or even read the Macra Terra Fuliden, so I didn't see what sequel possibilities there were for the Macra. So now I was waiting for that entire episode to see what the deal was with the Macra. But I think seeing the fact that they're acknowledging the creators, which they've always continuous to do, and even with the new creators, with obviously now Stephen Moffat gets the Angels a creator credit, and I think does RTD, did he create the
The Ood?
The Ood, yeah.
Yeah, that would be in the two-parter. Yeah, he wrote that.
He wrote Satan Pit and
yeah.
So he created the Ood, so he gets a creator credit every time they show the Ood. So
I actually didn't notice that he got that.
Well, they don't put it at the end of the credits. They put it in a really weird, even in a more obscure place than the Marvel. If any of you see Marvel movies, they kind of put it towards the end when they start listing all the Disney and Marvel personnel, and they'll say who the main character was created by, and then with acknowledgments to several creators whose comics, including Harlan Ellison, because I think he wrote a story in the Microverse, so he had to be credited in the last Ant-Man movie.
This is interesting because the credited writer for The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit is Matt Jones. It's not Russell.
Hold on, you're right. Oh God, oh my God. My creds just went down the drain.
Well, wait a minute. Somebody got credited for the Ood. I just can't remember. Maybe I was wrong and I thought it was RTD.
You are right. Oh, I got a fact check. You know what that is? Yeah, I didn't I was just what I said was correct. It just wasn't fact checked, and now it has been, and we found out I was wrong.
It might not be wrong because for some reason they are created by writer Russell T. Davis, even though Russell didn't write the episode that they
Well, if you
appeared
think
in.
about it, didn't Russell like map out the entire thing and give people assignments using characters and things?
Yeah.
Okay, so there we go. I was right. We fact checked again. Mark 42 is right. My first one, and I'm going to do what Juan did in chronological order so I don't get stepped over, because we have this thing where if we're stepped over, we have to come up with a new one. So my turn. I'm going with one that's even before those. About 4 minutes or 5 minutes into Rose. When Rose is surrounded by all the shop dummies and is being chased, and
you are talking about Graham Norton, aren't you?
No, oh my God, I was, but we'll change. That was fun because my copy had that because Anyway,
look, you could get 3 moments from Rose alone.
Right. No, but I'm going to give the moment I was going to give when the Graham Norton thing. Oh my God, that was funny. Graham Norton was in the first episode of Doctor Who. I don't know if you guys know it. Anyway, my one was when she's being chased and attacked, and one of the Autons, because that's what they were, was about to hit her. Raised his hand and was about to hit her. A hand comes out through a door, grabs her wrist, and the voice says, "Run." The introduction of the Doctor in the first episode of the New Who, it was my favorite because it brought back a character who had been missing from the new episodes, from the airwaves since 1996. And you know what? It was about time. The fact the first word is "run" brought me back to moments of Patrick Troughton when I say "run, run," and that to me was my first important and favorite moment of New Who, is when the Doctor was there and we knew, okay, we have a Doctor, we're good.
Obviously, Russell and the team had to think about the first introduction of the Doctor, and obviously that was an effective one. Can't say we could do this whole show just on Rose. I'm seriously, we could probably find.
I guess we could. We could do it. We've never reviewed Rose on this show. That could have been an idea for a show.
Yeah, and I think that it was a good production story moment to not start with him, to start with Rose and introduce him through her eyes.
Because isn't that what a companion is supposed to be? We're supposed to use the companion's eyes to get through to the Doctor. Isn't that like part of the core
I think
reasoning of a companion, at least in the old show?
Jarrod, let me take this real quick and then back to you, because I think that was always Robert Holmes' style of writing Doctor Who, is introduce the situation first, and then the Doctor comes in, with few exceptions. Like Talons of Weng-Chiang, the Doctor opens up the story. But usually, like Terror of the Autons, we introduce the Master first, and then we go to the Doctor. So the Doctor always does not get the first scene in a Robert Holmes.
I'm thinking Colin Baker's season. Colin Baker's season, where the Doctor shows up maybe 20 minutes into the episode or something.
That's problematic because of Eric Sayward's writing.
I was just watching the commentary and stuff on Vengeance on Varos last night, and it was great stuff.
Well, and I'm sitting here thinking about the '96 movie, and it's starting with Sylvester.
Yeah.
And and then starting with Sylvester and then cutting to Grace rather than having Grace her point of view. I wonder if that would have fixed something with that movie and its reception. Granted, nothing would have fixed it because it was up against Dan's heart attack episode of Roseanne
and the basketball championship. Well, this is interesting. You bring up, and we're going off of the topic, but I always felt, because I love Sylvester, and I was grateful that they did a regeneration. However, it is a 90-minute show, basically, because of commercials, 90 minutes, and the first half hour, Sylvester, and I guess you only need an hour for a Doctor Who episode, because that's all you got at Paul McGann. You got an hour, and so I thought if Sylvester did eat away into the time of the actual story that could have went. I love Sylvester. I don't want him not in the movie. I just think maybe a little less and a little more of the new episode.
Starting with Rose and having that bit of mystery surrounding that hand grabbing run moment worked better. That you didn't know who the hell this guy is. All you knew it was a better option than what she was about to get.
Mark, before we start the next round, I think we should bring up the fact that I don't know, did any of you, now I was a bad boy and I used BitTorrents to get the leaked episode before the premiere.
Yeah.
I was very bad.
I purposely did not. I
couldn't wait.
We plead the fifth.
Well, I think the statutes of limitations of pirating an episode, I don't think they're as long as murder, so I think I'm in the clear.
You did it right at the height of the "You Wouldn't Steal a Car" campaign.
Yeah, but it was it was interesting. I mean, I remember Steven Shapansky did a bit, I think, on the reality bomb of somebody who was, because I think it leaked out of Canada, which is where Steven is from. He's from Edmonton,
I'm pretty sure that was it.
And he played a guy who was a Battlestar Galactica friend who was very liberal at using frack, and he had to prepare this for broadcast or something. He goes, "Hey, this is Doctor Who," and it led for him to leaking the episode online.
Did you just say frack?
I will say frack.
No, because it's interesting. Going back to Simon, that's what caused the earthquake. Fracking about 100 miles north. I actually was trying not to use that word, but you used it. So frack this.
You do know it's
I know what the word is. I watched Battlestar Galactica. I know. Sean, you're up for round 2.
So say we all.
Personal. There you go. Personal favorite number 2.
Well, I will take a break from Love and Monsters. I'm going to go for a softball, one that everyone can agree with. Anything that involves Bernard Cribbins, of course. So Wilfred's moment in Turn Left, one of the most heartbreaking moments. And even if it was without words, just his delivery alone, just his expressions, are enough to elicit a reaction from anybody. And I think, so for example, like my day job, I work for an elected official, and I think it's just in any kind of public service or government operation or anything, it's so important to remember that we have not evolved past, all of these things that we like to, we like to tell ourselves that we've grown, as a people, and that there are certain lines that we will never cross ever again. And deluding yourself into thinking that is exactly, what'll tiptoe you back towards crossing those lines. So just making sure that we always have a healthy skepticism of ourselves, and knowing that we are all potential, participants in an evil system. I think that scene really, really made that really made that statement, made it very raw, and it was heartbreaking to see a character who was literally there last time and actually experienced those things last time, and he's seeing it all happening again.
Bert, sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
No, I was
yeah.
gonna say Bernard Cribbins. It just in essence is a favorite moment when he shows up in Voyage of the Damned. And you didn't know he was going to be in the season later.
Mhm.
I mean that's beautiful. I mean, I was just happy. Oh wow, he's the guy from the movie, and I like his other stuff. And oh my God, it's Bernard. And then he comes back as the grandfather, and I'm like, oh wow. I mean, really, anything Bernard is in his whole career is a favorite moment.
Mhm.
And
But
Sean, I think you just picked up on another element of my first step where you have moments like this where if you go back and watch it in a different frame of mind, it speaks
Mhm.
volumes in different ways than you might not have picked up on the first time you saw it.
Mhm.
And yes, Bernard Cribbins is any moment of his on screen could have
Yeah.
easily been a favorite moment of mine.
Mhm.
You know, he broke your heart by saying this is what they called it last time. He broke my heart in when he was knocking on the inside of the door, warning David.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Yes, that's a beautiful moment. Not my personal favorite, but that's a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's like, "Leave me. I've had a life. Leave
Mhm.
me." And you're
Yeah.
just sitting there, keep bawling, breaking your
Yeah.
heart over him. So
Yeah.
yeah, I get it
It,
completely.
Yeah.
it's funny when I watch Doctor Who, especially New Who, not old classical. When I watch Doctor Who, New Who, any episode that brings a tear to my eye or a slight cry is a favorite. And I would, and to be honest, most stories do that. But wow, Bernard Cribbins, yeah, that's a good moment. Jarrod.
Okay. For mine, I am going to the other end of the spectrum for this moment, to the other end of the show's run, to the 13th Doctor's era.
Okay.
And I am taking the episode Rosa. And the reason I am taking the episode as a whole is I was born and raised in South Alabama. I am from about an hour south of Montgomery, Alabama. I met Rosa Parks in elementary school. She came to our school and spoke and talked about things and all that. I remember this vividly. And I remember all sorts of cool stuff about Rosa Parks, like the fact that the owner of Little Caesars Pizza paid her rent for like the last 20 years of her life and all this crazy.
Pizza.
Yeah. But that was the first time seeing someone as a quote unquote historical figure that I had actually met in my life, and seeing a story I was intimately familiar with depicted in that way, personally was a personal favorite of mine. So I'm going to say for me, Rosa.
You know what's interesting, Jarrod?
Yep.
I know a lot of lists on the net have Rosa down, but you know what? Your reason makes it better than the reasons they give. You have a personal tie to it. I think that differs than just saying, oh, it was a historical figure that was important. You have a story on that.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Yep. And so, yeah, I often say that the scariest place that the TARDIS has ever landed was Montgomery, Alabama in the 50s.
Yeah.
And gentlemen, my brothers and sisters of the World Science Fiction Society, or attendees of Worldcon, also agreed and put Rosa as a finalist for Hugo for Best Dramatic Presentation. Sadly, it lost to an episode of The Good Place, which is a very good show, but it was a heavy hitter that year because The Demons of the Punjab also got nominated.
And Rosa's one of those episodes. I have a complaint whenever people say, what episode should you show people of Doctor Who to get them into it, to get them used to it? And everyone always says Blink. Always.
I don't know why.
And I
Doctor's
think
not in that episode. Why would you pick that as the episode you show him?
I have a better Blink is a good episode.
It is, but it's not representative as a whole of the show.
But it is my thing, Mark. It is extremely good.
Oh, it is.
There are very few episodes that you could watch after it that would meet that bar.
And that's kind of sad in a way.
So
I hate to say
think
it, but
I think if you're going to introduce someone to Doctor Who, you need to introduce them with an episode that there are some episodes that are better, there are some that are worse. This is indicative of the show. Whereas if you show them Blink, and in some ways Rosa, Demons of the Punjab, as something that, okay, I'm going to introduce you to this, they're going to expect more on that level.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah. Sorry for the tirade.
No.
It's all yours. So.
Oh no, I was just responding. I think figuring out an episode to show a new Doctor Who person is a fruitless endeavor. You're never going to get it right.
Yeah.
I off the top of my head, I would recommend just making people watch a season opener, because there's a better chance that that's going to try to invite new people of either the classic or modern era. And that's just my 2 cents.
My favorite opener is the 11th hour.
I was going to say that.
That's a good opener.
We actually showed that for the anniversary meeting of my club because of that reason, because it is an amazing opener for the show. And it's the 11th month and the 11th Doctor. So, yeah.
Oh, and Jarrod, I just missed that you were...
to a certain degree, too.
Cinematic, you're right.
Yeah, that I think is maybe more digestible for some audiences, where maybe a lot of us would choose something like Rose, or, pick something out, like an exceptional episode for the middle of a season. But 11th hour, I think, hits a really nice balance where it's digestible by, I think most audiences and most ages. My daughter, my oldest, that's how I introduced her to Who. Also, my daughter has a bad attention span, just like me. So I think it was stimulating enough to kind of keep her attention.
Yeah, but Sean, that doesn't count as one of your choices.
No,
Juan, it's your up.
Yes, and I apologize. I didn't realize Jarrod was doing a graceful handoff. I thought he wanted opinions on it. But I do have my next choice is in the 10th Doctor era. It is my favorite Christmas special. It still remains my favorite Christmas special. It is The Runaway Bride. And I'm going to narrow one part of The Runaway Bride, which I believe, as I wrote in my review for the Guardians of Gallifrey newsletter, was something that the producers of the classic era would have loved to have done, but obviously they could have not have done. And that is the TARDIS sequence on the motorway. And I don't know.
Oh, yes.
And it is not only is it a technically demanding sequence with obviously a lot of moving parts, and I've only seen it a few years ago. I decided to, it might have been 5 years after. It was some number of years that went by, and I decided to rewatch it and then watch for the first time Love Actually. But because it was Christmas
is a good
time.
movie, by the way. Some people don't like it. I think Love Actually is a good movie.
Oh yeah. I say it's a good movie. It has some bumps. So let's focus. So, but that sequence is just beautiful every time. And also it's an emotional sequence, because I think the Doctor needed to be reminded that Rose is alive. When that scene where Donna questions, is that what happened to Rose? And she goes, no, she's alive. Very much. And he needs to remind himself that to get himself out of his funk that, permeates in the episode. It still permeates when he goes to the reception. And I think it was also an episode where they first said Gallifrey for the first time, if I recall correctly. So it was
in New Who,
yeah, New Who. I think it was the first episode. Of course, we get Catherine Tate to, as I don't know if Jarrod went to Gallifrey 1, but I know Mark went to MegaCon. She's a force
amazing.
of nature.
Yeah, my God.
And fun person. I mean, and also I like her in other stuff. It's a goofy little movie. I believe it's called Monte Carlo, where she plays a great aunt of the main character, or the main character's trying to. I mean, Catherine Tate. There's not enough. So The Runaway Bride. That's my second moment that I'd have to pick. Now I got to decide between two moments. Well, so you guys are doing
So Juan, I think the line of dialogue that you're really speaking to here is, "Did she trust you?"
Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah. That was a very emotional scene, and this incredible action sequence of visuals, and you have the kids and you looking at this, and just having the TARDIS come out of the sky. And I guess I would say that Philip Hinchcliffe and Graham Williams would have loved, and Barry Letts would have loved to have done it, but obviously
Yeah.
you couldn't do that.
And just think you can add another layer of detail to this scene by thinking poor Sutek is hanging on to the side of the TARDIS.
There's some people who will ruin the moment, but that doesn't ruin it for me. I have no problem with Sutek hanging on to TARDIS for over 30 years or whatever it was.
40 years. 40 years.
I will agree with you 100% on Catherine Tate. She is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I've told this to Mark. She is one of the very few Doctor Who actors and actresses that if she came up to me and said, Jarrod, I want you to organize me a convention, I would do it, no questions asked.
Yeah.
I have had convention experiences with her. I have had stage door experiences with her. I explained this to Mark, and Juan, you'll appreciate this as well. When you go to a convention, she is one of those very few convention guests that stands on the side of the table with the fans. She doesn't have that barrier between you and her when you meet. She is standing right there. She embraces you. If you want a selfie, she's going to take it with your camera. She's just wonderful, and it was in many ways probably my favorite companion of any medium. So
Jarrod, I can one better that. So you're saying she does the photographs. When she does a panel, she doesn't stand on stage. She does a Sylvester. She grabs the microphone and starts walking around, making sure everyone gets a full shot of her. Instead of just seeing her on the stage, she's like 2 seats away from you, and she's answering questions round robin. And it's just and then at the end of it, she gets people to stand up and does a speed round, stuff like that. Is a convention guest. That is a perfect convention guest. I love Catherine.
Just curious, was it standing room only during Catherine's appearance at MegaCon, or
well, at the end it was, but it was full. It was a packed house, completely packed. That was a big auditorium, completely packed. Completely.
I mean, Juan, you have to sit here and think. She had enough of a draw to have her own panel.
Yeah, everyone else had a share.
She had the other was a shared Doctor Who companions panel, except for Catherine. She had her own.
Okay. Yes. Well, no, the thing is, I didn't, because of scheduling, I think I had a conflict. All the other panels I saw, there was room to move around. That's what I'm saying. And I don't think in any of the panels I went to, it was completely shut out.
There were 3 panels that day that were shut out. You could not get in. They blocked it off. And they said, if you leave, don't bother coming back. And she was one of those panels. Remember, guys, you're listening to Mark Who 42's Universe. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten. We've got Juan Sanmiguel, Sean Rivera, and Jarrod Cooper here. And I think it's time for my second personal favorite moment from New Who, celebrating 20 years of New Who. We're going back again. If we're doing chronological, I am not getting copied by anybody because I'm still in the Eccleston era here. The moment at the end of the Doctor dances, when the Doctor, for the first time in his lives, and I'm pretty sure it's the first time, he says, "And everybody lives, Rose. Everybody lives." And not even that, but then he realizes, oh, wait a minute, someone's about to die, and he rescues Captain Jack, so that really no one died. Now, I take exception to that because it's the middle of World War II. The Germans are bombing London. Hell of a lot of people died, but nobody tied into the Doctor's story died. And that, to me, was an important, because the Doctor had PTSD. He still had, from the Time War and killing all the Daleks and the Time Lords, because that was what it was back then. And the fact that he finally had an adventure, finally had a story where nobody, absolutely nobody, except peripheral people that don't count, the people getting bombed, nobody died. That is a favorite moment of mine.
Again, it was unique. I mean, it was something different. I mean, I like that story. Again, I think that also made the short list for the Hugos that year. So my friends and my brothers and sisters in fandom agreed with that. No, and it was an overall good story, a new take on the story. I mean, it's very, unfortunately, in the classic era, you can never get casualty rates to 0. I mean, and even the best of circumstances.
Yeah.
So, no, it's a good story.
No, there's one story. There's one story that doesn't have any deaths. Edge of Destruction or Into the Spaceship, whatever you want to call it, there are only 4 characters in it and they all live. So there is another. Ian, Barbara, Susan, and the Doctor lived. So maybe there's one other story where everyone lived.
Even the story where the only character was the Doctor had a pretty high body count, if you really, really think about it.
If you think about it, Peter Capaldi's character kept dying every time there were billions of deaths. You're
That's
right.
what I was saying. It was only one character that just died repeatedly. So yeah.
There you go. Okay. Round 3. Oh, oh wow, this show is going smoothly. We're rolling through here. Sean, what is your third personal favorite moment from New Who?
All right, so there's so many I had to juggle. But going back to Love and Monsters, this is not so much a moment as it is just kind of a plot point or plot occurrence. Victor Kennedy's meddling with the group, or the impact that he had on the group dynamic, and capitalizing on something that was like an intrinsic passion of theirs. It was much more about the journey and not the destination, and really kind of diminishing it into just an act of labor. I think, when you think about other episodes that discuss worker exploitation in much clearer terms, or not clearer terms, but that are much more on the nose about it, something like Kerblam.
Yeah.
I feel like this is probably one of the most powerful ones if you interpret it through like a worker export. There we go, getting tongue-tied. But if you interpret it through that lens, I think its message hits harder than something like Kerblam, especially since right at the end of Kerblam, they kind of turn heel and kind of do a guns don't kill people, keep people kill people kind of philosophy, but with worker exploitation. But I feel like a lot of people can relate to what the group went through. Like if you loved art, as a child, but after taking, different art classes that started, making you crank out painting after painting until the fun really got sucked out of it. Or I used to be gifted in math. I mean, I'm still fine with it, but it was something that I enjoyed just as an intrinsic passion because I found it fun. Until it turned to labor. And I think there are just so many things that everyone could probably think of 3 examples of something that may have actually changed your life trajectory if you had just pursued it for the sake of pursuing it and not because it has to serve some kind of end goal purpose. So that's something that so I don't know if that's exactly a moment or kind of a montage of sorts, but that's a plot point that I really that also hit me really hard in that episode.
And in many ways, it was like loss of potential, because the group, Linda in this case, if you take Linda and then compare it to another organization like the Silver Cloak, that was Wilfred's little retiree group that was chasing after the Doctor. Those are all organizations that I would have loved to have seen a spinoff, even not an entire series. I would have loved to have seen more about their little adventures, because I think that would have been fun. And as you said, Victor Kennedy represents exploitation and removing the fun out of a passion, and there have been characters in the show where that was their story arc. I think back to Janet Fielding as Tegan, standing there in front of the 5th Doctor saying, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
And, that is 100% something that is a repeated pattern throughout the show. So it may not be a moment, but it's a feeling 100%.
All right, Jarrod, go with your final, maybe not final, favorite moments.
I'm going to go for a moment that, because there are many, many, many moments that fall under the same theme. And I'm going to go for the moment that symbolizes all of them. And that is going to be Graham's companion support group.
Okay. I will
because
give you that. Yes.
because when the show came back in 2005, they had no clue what to do with the classic series. For the first year, it was don't touch it, don't talk about it, don't mention it, don't do this, that, and the other. And throughout the years, you had that first school reunion with Sarah Jane, where in K9, where you sort of
Right.
dipped into it. And now let's just do a list of all the classic companions that
Yeah.
haven't been in the new series, because that list is shorter than the ones that have. And I think even if you go back to Night of the Doctor from 2013, where you have Paul McGann listing off his audio companions as a
Yes.
nod to the audio fans, that scene, everything about that companion support group scene just touched my heart as a new series fan. Even the empty chair for Sarah Jane just broke me. So yeah, that is going to be my favorite moment, is really anything where they acknowledge the classic companions or bring them either closure or growth or whatever. That's going to be me.
Jarrod, do you remember Robert Sherman talking about what the Dalek would have been if they didn't have the rights to the Daleks in that first season?
Yeah.
I don't think it would. I mean, Robert would have wrote a very good story, but it wouldn't be the classic. I don't think it would have. To have the was it the Toclafane?
The
Toclafane.
Toclafane would have been the ones who destroyed Gallifrey and the Time Lords. Nah, wouldn't work for me. Would not have worked.
I disagree. I think if Rob or RTD they would have sold it to us.
Yeah, but you're right, because I think if you go back, it would have, but it would have changed the entire.
But to be
scope
honest,
of the show, and
unfortunately,
you can't imagine that.
The estate must have figured out something that I think, to a certain extent, Terry Nation sadly had to accept it. Unfortunately, outside of Doctor Who, the Daleks don't do well on their own.
Yeah.
They did have their own comic strip, and I think that's the height of solo Dalek efforts. So it's either Doctor Who or nothing. Even though and I will say, of what I've read about his TV Dalek proposal, it was intriguing, but it sadly didn't succeed. And I think I'm glad that the estate got its sense that, well, it's not like anybody else is going to be using the Daleks, or.
I wonder what it would have been like if at the end of Star One, the Daleks were the alien armada coming through. Because that was something that Terry wanted to do in Blake 7, wasn't it, guys?
I've heard that rumor.
I mean, I've read it written down. I mean, I think it's not just a rumor. I think there was a definite wanting of doing that, but the producer and the scriptwriter kind of said no.
Well, it just would have meant that Doctor Who that you could have a Doctor Who crossover, and supposedly, I think Gareth Thomas, I guess Gareth and Tom Baker were both drinking buddies, and said, why can't Tom show up on Blake 7? But then again, I could understand why not mixing up. And actually, I just heard on a fellow podcast that there was a lot more stress on making Blake 7 than there was on Doctor Who, because they were expecting American money. They were expecting to be like Space 1999 or the Avengers to be a co-production. That's what I heard on the DVD, because they recently came out with the DVD Blu-ray.
The Blu-ray.
Blu-ray. Yeah. They talked to some people, and they talked about, that it was very demanding, and I think they were expecting, and when they didn't get it, they were really working hard, and it was even more difficult in some ways to make it than Doctor Who. But had they done that, it just would have meant that, maybe we could have a Doctor Who crossover.
Yeah.
And although at that point, obviously, both Gareth and even Tom, I think, might have been gone from the show at that point.
Well, I mean, if you think if I remember correctly, the thing that they were talking about was the Doctor's walking down the corridor, Raj walks past them, hi Blake, hi Doctor, and that would be it. That was what they were talking about, if I remember correctly, the joke or the story. All right, back to New Who. Whoa, we've gone so far away. We do this on Mark Who 42. We go on tangents, but we pull them back in. Who is next?
That'd be Juan.
Okay, just want to make sure. Well, gentlemen, I'm glad that we're wrapping up on this, and I've got a backup in case if we want to go for another round. But I'm going to go. I'm going to go for the gusto. I'm going to say the Day of the Doctor epilogue scene, and we all know what we're talking about.
Tears. Good episode.
I saw that on the worldwide live broadcast, And then I got to see it with a friend when it was in the theaters. I took one of my dearest friends out, and she likes Doctor Who. Didn't like the last season as much, but I took her out to see this on the big screen, even though I'd already seen it, and it was better on the was great on the big screen. I mean, the fact that until Tom is a very great guy, but unfortunately not good at keeping a secret. But then again, that scene, it just was a killer scene. Tom was at his, shows that an 80-year-old man can still be at the top of his game when it comes to acting. It's everything you could have wanted. And the Day of the Doctor, and if any of you guys have it on your list, well, we're at the end. I'm the last one. Well, if you have it on your list,
go ahead.
It was
this is
the
my favorite
best
extras.
special. And unfortunately, Mark, I forget if you put this in the recording that we should have a special just for Modern Who, and I think it's impossible because Doctor Who's got to honor its start with the classic, and that's why we're only going to have big events for the tens. Like we had the specials for the 60th anniversary. We had the Day of the Doctor and the Night of the Doctor and Name of the Doctor for the 50th. I think it'd be just too crazy to, unless it's possible, but I think it'd be too possible.
I do have to interrupt for just a second because I think I've made an error. Because this episode, we're doing this, it's coming out on the 25th, but we're recording the week before, and I just realized Red Nose Day was, if we're on the 25th, last Friday night. And yes, there was a Doctor Who thing. So I'm wondering if that was the 20th anniversary thing.
No,
it may have happened.
Let's do it at broadcast or do it when evil people download it online.
Red Nose Day counts as sort of Time Crash wouldn't have been, I guess, is that canon, Time Crash?
Absolutely. Can I interject here for a second and say one of the things that was on my short list of favorite moments was the very first Regeneration Cutaway Children in Need special that they did, where they did that little cut scene between David and Billy.
That was a good scene,
And that was something that was not planned, and the show had come back and had proven to be extremely popular. And Children in Need said, "Can you give us something to put here?" And that led then to Time Crash, where one of my doctors, Peter Davison, came back, and it's then gone to years and years of special scenes, spin-offs, cutaways, concerts. So for me, that little cutaway created an entire side thing that I've thoroughly enjoyed all these years.
And Red Nose Day, one of the they had that two-part story, Space and Time, with the 11th Doctor, Rory and Amy, where the TARDIS lands in the TARDIS and they're like the timey-wiminess. Is that canon? Does Red Nose Day count as canon? Because I think Children in Need does. Does Red Nose, because it's a comedy thing. Does that count?
I say it's all canon. What do you think, Jarrod?
It's included on a DVD set. It's canon.
It's canon. Okay. So whatever we saw last Friday, and it was I loved it. It was the best thing I've ever seen. We haven't seen it yet, but you have, if you're listening to this. That was probably the special that they were doing. Probably. Most likely. Anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you, Juan. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I think it's, I think so far, and I love the 60th anniversary specials, but I think the Day of the Doctor, perfect way to celebrate the show for the 50th anniversary, from using the original title sequence to starting it at Coal Hill School.
Yeah.
The story was strong, the acting was strong, and it just occurred to me, every doctor surviving doctor from the classic era has appeared in the modern era. In either cameos, all of them have appeared in, whether it was in the Day of the Doctor, Time Crash, or in the Name of the Doctor.
And if you count Rogue, we even got Richard E. Grant.
Yes, we did. We got Richard E. Grant. We got the Schalke. Woohoo! The actual Ninth Doctor. Well, at least that's what they said back in 2003. Okay, I think we are going to go to extra innings on this. I think we may do a fourth, but let me do my third.
All right. Okay. I have a backup, so.
Oh, that's what we're going to. But my third, I've been saying with Eccleston, let's move on to my favorite new Dr. Peter Capaldi. Favorite new companion. So Peter Capaldi, I'm talking about the witch's familiar. The doctor saves the one person most responsible than just him for the time war than anyone, the creator of the most evil race of beings, and we're talking about Davros, when he was a young boy. Okay? The boy says to the doctor, "Whose side are you on? Are you the enemy?" And the doctor replies, "I'm not sure that any of that matters. Friends, enemies, so long as there's mercy. Always mercy." It goes back to the idea, another one from from Genesis of the Daleks, where the doctor is basically going back in time to kill or the race of the Daleks, and in essence, kind of that story where, like, would you go back in time and kill Hitler when he was a boy? That was kind of where it was in Genesis of the Daleks, and it's kind of here. And the doctor was very hesitant about doing it because out of great evil, good can come out of it. And the doctor now, in Which Is Familiar, faces his decision head on and realizes that not only can't he do that for that reason, but also his moral code would never allow that decision. That was one of my favorite moments.
One of the interesting things is that the separation, more or less, between that and Genesis of the Daleks is 40 years, because it came out, the Magician's Apprentice and the Witch's Familiar came out in 2015.
Yes.
And Genesis, which right now we are celebrating the 50th anniversary. I just saw part 2 of Genesis of the Daleks. I had a busy day yesterday and I forgot to watch it. So I watched it this morning. So we're at part 2 of Genesis of the Daleks.
Well, no, remember, we're a week behind. So they're listening to this. You're actually on episode 3. And you have seen it, haven't you?
Well, I hope to plan to.
Next Saturday.
Yeah. Well, next Saturday will be part 3. I'm sorry. I forget that I'm in the future right now.
We're in the future, so last Saturday. Right.
Hopefully it'll be better than this present that we're living in.
Okay. Good God. All right, you're listening to Mark Who 42. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten, Sean Rivera, Jarrod Cooper, and Juan Sanmiguel. I'm doing this like it's a real radio show where every once in a while I'm doing a little to make sure you're listening, what you're listening to. I think if you've chosen this podcast, you kind of know what you're listening to. All right, I said we might do extra innings. I think we've got time for one more each. These would be runners-up, folks, so they may not be the fourth in essence. Sean.
Okay, well, I'll take a little detour if it's okay to Torchwood.
You can do that. That's legal.
Great.
Go ahead.
I guess Hooniverse is Hooniverse. Okay, so in Torchwood, the horribly, horribly chilling moment in Children of Earth, when, I don't know where I was expecting the scene to go when the government officials so quickly and promptly resort to, filing away disadvantaged kids.
Yeah.
I guess, it's a scene that when you're approaching it for the first time, I think you kind of know what's going to happen, but part of you is holding out hope that they are going to resist the decision or argue about it or pull their hair out before saying, okay, let's get to business. We're getting rid of the poor kids, right? So yeah, seeing them so quickly resort to that in such a callous way.
But is that a personal favorite moment? Because it's it's not really favorite. It's kind of like the most worst moment in a way.
I guess. Okay.
I'm just saying, but go ahead, keep going.
Yeah.
It's the moment that made the biggest impression on you, and it's
and
it has clearly impacted you all these years.
That was a very hard moment to watch.
Yeah, and I haven't seen Torchwood in probably maybe 5 years or so. If we're talking favorites, and I won't go on this for long because that would count as a fifth and sixth.
Go for it. Just go ahead. Go ahead.
Just as honorable mention, Breaking the Rules of Regeneration and Breaking the Diamond Wall, both of those, the audio from that is on my workout playlist. I'll leave it at that. But
I'm actually going to jump ahead I'm not going to do my turn, but I'm going to follow up on that. You bring up the Breaking of the Regeneration moment, and you're about the music, of course. One of my runners up was the scene in Christmas Invasion where the Sycorax leader slices off the Doctor's hand, and he grows a new one. The regeneration rule of 1 hour. Was it 24 hours? 24. It was 1 or 20. The fact that we were learning more about regeneration than just, when I die, I come back. I like the fact that they really, they had mentioned all my molecules but it change and adapt, but mutate. But you actually see it for the first time. That, to me, that was one of my runners up, because I know as a kid, we had discussions. How does regeneration work? And so, well, we kind of learned it finally. Yeah,
and
but
then we
the music
learned
for that, what you were saying, it's on your playlist, really?
Oh yeah, on a loop.
I need to start putting instrumental music on my playlist when I'm walking through the park and exercising, because I just listen to Big Finish, and not that there's anything wrong. In fact, it's great to listen to Big Finish, right, Jarrod?
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you. We're doing a plug for Big Finish. Do you no? But no, playlist of music actually works, and that is a great track. That is a great track. I may have to put that on mine.
Sean, I want to talk Torchwood just a second, because it's near and dear to my heart, as both Juan and Mark know. Yeah. And Children of Earth is arguably one of the best stories that the Doctor Who universe has produced. Somebody called it "slit your wrists good" one time, and I think that's it. A story that I'll share. One of my now best friends is Gareth David Lloyd, who played Yonto, and he appeared at an event with us here in Florida between the airing of season 2 and Children of Earth, and I had to sign an NDA as the person that was with him, because his being killed off had already been filmed.
Yeah.
And it was just so you know, he can't talk or speak to any questions around this. Be prepared for this should it come up. And I mean, in many ways, it's a horrible situation, but at the same time, we have a Doctor Who spinoff that generated a memorial for a fictional character that still stands 20 years later. Yeah. My other moment is from a spinoff. So yeah, I agree with you 100% that while it may not be favorite, happy, shiny, there are still some moments that impact us and are lasting throughout that series.
Juan,
well,
are you going to skip me from mine?
Oh, did you just say that was what you? Hold on,
no,
Jarrod. You actually, the words out of your mouth was, and that is one of my other person. I thought that was what you were going for.
No, that wasn't.
Okay,
that wasn't.
All right,
I'm
sorry. My
Jarrod, sometimes you have to slap Mark around. God knows I've done it.
No, okay, I was just backing him up on Torchwood.
Okay.
My moment that, again, it's a favorite for reasons I have said earlier, and it comes from the Sarah Jane Adventures. We are coming from an episode called The Death of the Doctor.
Ooh.
And it is that moment when Joe Jones is sitting there and turns to the 11th Doctor and said, "Did you think I was stupid?" And that was like character growth and closing an arc that had been 30 years growing at that point. And it really dealt with that relationship with, you never came back and see me, you came and saw her, what was wrong with me? And it's stuff that we never knew that we needed, and it was closure, and it was growth, and it was things that was never afforded to these characters in the past, but given the right opportunity and the right writing, it's just as impactful. So when Joe says, "Did you think I was stupid?" in that entire conversation that comes afterward, is 100% right there for me.
That is a beautiful scene. Beautiful. I don't know what to add to that. It was just great to see her on, whether it's a spin-off or not, back in the Whoniverse, and just being there and still alive, and the story keeps going.
Yeah, and it is one of those characters that you can't really do anything with. You talked about Bernard Cribbins.
Yeah.
Russell and Phil admitted that they couldn't kill off Wilfred even after Bernard Cribbins has passed, which is why he's off shooting moles in the garden.
Yes.
Joe, I think you could do stuff with, and
I think you can kill her off, really?
Oh, you can't kill her off.
That's what he was talking about. He was.
I didn't think you meant that. I thought, it's kind of interesting what happens when you do have, somebody like Liz Sladen. I can't remember any other major. Liz Sladen and William Russell pass away. I mean, and when you just seeing their characters still alive in the modern era, should you address it? Should you not address it? Is there an in between? But I thought that's what you meant. But then sometimes you want to say that you did do it to the Brigadier. You did give him an off-screen death, and when Nicholas Courtney passed away.
And you gave him an impactful off-screen death that it impacted the story, which I loved.
Right. So it's
and Sarah during the lockdown. Was it during lockdown when they did the
funeral?
The funeral was in lockdown, right? Oh, yeah. Who else? Lish. Did they ever do anything with Liz Shaw, or was that only in the books? Because I remember that New Adventures, the
I don't know when
Eternity
Carolyn
Weeps, where they killed off Liz Shaw.
I don't know
Mars, if I remember correctly.
I don't know. I don't follow. Unfortunately, there's too much expanded material
to
follow.
They've not dealt with her passing. Last reference to her was she was still on Mars.
I thought she was on the moon.
Was a death,
or the moon, or Mars, or wherever.
It was the moon, but I thought there was a death scene. Didn't she die?
No.
In the book?
Wait. I know what you're talking about.
Eternity Weeps.
Eternity Weeps. She did die there.
The end of it. The very end.
But that was before the reference to her being on the moon.
They also killed off Dodo in a horrible way in Who Killed Kennedy. God.
I don't know. I don't know if did they ever take that
Probably
back?
Probably not canon.
Well, I mean, the thing is, some things. I mean, here's on a quick tangent, and I'll try not to go.
We've already gone. Go ahead.
Dodo was already she wasn't a problematic companion. It's just that unfortunately there was chaos in the Doctor production. You had one producer leaving, one producer coming in, and I think they just wanted to clean the slate with companions, which is why you had Dodo leave in the middle of the War Machines to be replaced by Ben and Polly, and it was kind of sad. I mean, the story I've seen The Celestial Toymaker. She was good in that. I mean, there were problems with the story, which were not, but I think she was. I know some people feel that she was too naive in that episode, but I thought she was okay, and maybe had they given her more time. But then again, you didn't have time because you had one producer angry leaving the show and taking a script editor with him, and a new one coming in trying to get shows made on time. I will say this: I hope. I did like Liz Shaw. I've been watching her recently. As I said, we just wrapped up the Silurians in the Galactic Journey's 55th anniversary rewatch, which I do on Discord. And, she's just Carol and John was just a fun bunch of energy.
Yeah.
But so to lead into my last thing, if everybody's okay with that, something more recent from last year, and that's Boom. And I got to thank Stephen Moffat. This was on my Hugo ballot, which I had to turn in on Friday. And I had to pick out something. And I just thought, this is Stephen Moffat taking something which I just recently saw 2 weeks ago in my rewatch of Genesis of the Daleks, which took about, I think, 2 to 5 minutes.
2 to 5 minutes, yes.
To solve.
2-3 minutes, yeah.
And he made a whole 40-minute episode around it, or at least concentrated 40 minutes of it, of the Doctor standing on a landmine. And you kind of think, oh my God, how are they going to? I mean, it's Moffat, he's going to pull it off, but what is the trick? What is the magic trick? And I think you had the tension, of the problem, and you had obviously Trudy hopefully got to take a rest in between takes, but you had the Doctor with one leg for quite a while, and there was tension. You took a 2-minute idea and turned it into a 40-minute or 45-minute idea. I have to tip my hat off for it, and I shouldn't have doubted, but I don't think I doubted, but I think you're wondering, gee, how are they going to do that? What's Moffat got up his sleeve this time? So I think Boom, which is I think the most recent thing we've all discussed as a part of the modern era.
So the final one, me. Okay, I did Beginnings. I did Living. I did Mercy. I did ELO. I did Regeneration. Okay, I guess I have one more on my list. if we're going there, and we're going with comedy, the best comedic moment, the Day of the Doctor. The War Doctor watching 10 and 11, aiming their sonic screwdrivers. Why are you pointing your screwdrivers like that? They're scientific instruments, not water pistols. And then a few minutes later, oh, the pointing again. They're screwdrivers. What are you going to do? Assemble a cabinet at them? I love that line, those two lines. I love it. Comedic moments, those were my two favorite. The fact that we know, a lot of us know, they overuse the sonic screwdriver. That's been a major thing since classics. I'm bringing everything back to the classic series. That they overuse it, and that's why Jonathan Turner had the Terreptals destroy the Fifth Doctor's sonic screwdriver, because
I got
overused.
to stop you on there.
Oh,
John,
please stop me.
John, no, John made the wrong call on that. Philip Hinchcliffe thought the same way. He had other ways. The Doctor would forget it in the brain of Morbius. It got confiscated in Genesis of the Daleks.
Right. But you have to keep coming up. Maybe that's the trick. Coming up with reasons he doesn't have.
But the thing is, you didn't have to have. Now you can stop the Doctor with a locked door, which is not fun.
No, because you can pick a lock.
And if you're talking
wood, how do you get through anyway?
If you're talking comedic moments, there's one for me that works better than that.
Okay.
Catherine Tate in The Unicorn and the Wasp eating popcorn while they're trying to figure out the story.
That is a good scene. I get one better to you. The silent scene in Partners in Crime.
Yep.
That's better.
The window scene.
That was fun.
That was a funny scene. Yeah.
Actually, quick tangent. I really did like The Unicorn and the Wasp because I think I was about the same age as Agatha Christie was in that episode, and I go, yeah, she's a person. She's not this icon of literature that we regard her as. That she was a person dealing with real problems. And it just struck me as that when I was watching it. I could be wrong. I think it's kind of underrated.
Well, guys, we're running out of time. I want to let everyone know something. I know this is about New Who. And I think half of the time we were talking about Classic Who, but you know what? That's good, because in my mind, Classic and New, the same show, the same essence. It's Doctor Who. When you talk about New Who, you can't not talk about its origins in Classic Who. So I think this episode definitely embodied the joy of New Who and bringing it to Doctor Who is in large.
I don't think there are any artificial barriers that were put in.
Right.
As I mentioned,
well, there were originally. They were going to. They didn't want to bring it up, and then we got the Daleks, and that kind of broke that. But they were trying not to do that at the beginning, I thought.
Unfortunately, Rick Berman put in, and unfortunately, I'm not.
Rick Berman again. Okay.
Have I bashed Rick Berman a lot on this show?
You always do. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but
go ahead.
And part of it was because of the terms of Gene's divorce, because I think I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that the proceeds that he made from Next Generation had to be separated from the proceeds he got from the classic series. So that might have been a factor into why crossovers from the original show were rare. It's not that it didn't happen. I mean, I think they had to pull somebody's arms to do it at the time. And also Rick Berman, he'll admit that he didn't even watch the original show because, he was older and life. So I think
he lost his key creds to me then. I'm sorry.
That he had barriers. Now, and just to let me finish it off and bring it back to Doctor Who, RTD, none of the creators wanted to have barriers. This is a continuation of the show. We're not going to ignore the past for good and for bad. I mean, obviously there are a lot of people who are still scratching their head over Sutekh hanging on the TARDIS for however many years it was. So but Jarrod, please tell me what you were going to say.
I was just going to say that the classic series was troublesome in 2005 when the show came back.
Yes,
because it wasn't that they didn't want to ignore it, but there was no quicker way to alienate an audience than to say, okay, if you want to watch this thing, here's 35 years of backstory, go get caught up. So they had to structure it so it was a jumping on point. There's not a barrier per se, but you had to structure it so that it's welcoming. Same way comic books do it all the time. It's annoying when comic books do it, but that's the reason that it is.
But I will say this, somebody summed up in this, and I don't want to mention their name because they're in a bad state right now, but somebody summed up Doctor Who like this. There's a guy with a box named the Doctor. It's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, and it can go anywhere, even places he wants to go to. Now, usually when the Doctor lands, there's a problem that has to be solved, and the Doctor will usually solve it because it's awesome. Now, shut up and watch Blink.
Yeah. And the other thing that I always say is when people talk about canon and all this other stuff, time changes every time the TARDIS door opens. And that's why we have how many different versions of Shada? How many different versions of the Five Doctors? I have no problem with it. Is it fun? Is it a story? No problems at all.
I'll be honest. I do have a problem with the cut that John Nathan Turner did. He didn't ask for Peter Moffat, who was still alive, to make that cut, and they shouldn't have just put in all the footage in. That is not a good move. There's a reason we took out that footage. It's a timing reason. I didn't mind that Riff Tracks did the Five Doctors. It did bother me that they used the direct-to-video version that John put together because it had a lot of scenes. Actually, I'm surprised they didn't make jokes about that. Sorry, that's my one of my personal.
And you know, issues. one of the things that was one of the new series moments that was farther down on my list was easily Joe Martin's introduction as the fugitive doctor.
No.
And there are people that whine, they're still whining and complaining about the Timeless Child and the Timeless Children. But you know what? She is fabulous. And I would watch a series with her. Her Big Finish box set is amazing.
Big Finish box set, I was going to say. Yeah.
Is amazing.
Yeah.
And I would watch a series with her tomorrow.
Yeah. And joining on the bandwagon, I'm all for Jarrod. I agree. I'm not going to. Unfortunately, I don't have time in the day for Big Finish as much as I would like. So, but I'm glad that she's getting her own Big Finish series.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna have final thoughts now. And actually, I think Juan and Jarrod kind of have. So, Sean, final thought. You're going to be the last thought, the last word here. Go for it.
Oh boy,
no pressure.
No pressure.
All right. Well, as somebody who is exactly as old as the '96 movie,
you're a youngin'.
Yeah, I know. I've known Who as long or as far back as I can remember. But unlike Trek, which is how Jarrod and I, got to know each other, it took me longer to really start diving into it. I was almost out of high school, by the time that I really, really developed a love for it.
Mm-hmm.
I have kind of a limited knowledge of the original run, but it's always great to see all of the hints and the peaks that you get because it is so evenly peppered throughout New Who.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of echoing what's been said here, a lot of times, there really is no barrier. It's all one series, and in the same way that TNG can stand on its own, or the TNG era and beyond of Trek can stand on its own without the original series. It's not a kind of like a mutually exclusive kind of distinction or between one series and the other. It's nice that they can both stand on their own without actually having any barrier program between them.
And, I'm going to piggyback on that for a second, Sean, and just bring up two things. One, school reunion. People watch that show. If you watch School Reunion, you are watching it from one of two perspectives. You are watching it as someone who is, quote unquote, Team Rose going, who is this woman that just showed up? Or you are watching it from Team Sarah Jane saying, okay, here's the old favorite, let's go. Neither viewpoint is wrong, and they each have different things that you're pulling from that role. Going to the other end, myself, I was a child of the TNG era, 100%. That doesn't mean that when I watched Relics, that I didn't respect who Scotty was, and I didn't respect Scotty being there just because I was a TNG fan. And I think those two from Trek and Who have very big parallels. in that scenario.
Wow. This was a great show. Jarrod, thank you for coming on as always. I'll let the rope go a little bit loose so you can get away for a while. Sean Rivera, nice meeting you. You were a great guest. We'd love to have you back on sometime. You really were a great, helped us in our discussion of the 20 years of New Who.
Hey, well, it was awesome being here.
All right. Juan, this was a great show, wasn't it?
Oh, no, it was a wonderful show. It was a marvelous show.
And I think that's all the time we have. On behalf of myself, Mark Baumgarten, Juan Sanmiguel, Jarrod Cooper, and Sean Rivera, I'd like to thank you very much for listening to Mark Who 42's Universe. And I said universe this time because it is the whole universe. Until next time, bye. You've been listening to Mark Who 42's Universe. Hosting this show are Mark Baumgarten, Vicky Jakubowski, and Juan Sanmiguel. If you'd like to leave a comment for us, please email us at markwho42.42@gmail.com. Mark Who 42's Universe is produced and directed by Mark Baumgarten. Copyright 2025.